Before we begin this week's episode, I'd like to take a moment to hear from one of our sponsors. This episode of Caminal is brought to you by potato chips from Belarus. Like chips but hate flavor? Try potato chips from Belarus. Not familiar? Well, picture Pringles, the worst chip. Now, imagine Pringles that have been chewed, spit out, and left in the sun for a few months. Then, cut them into long, flat rectangles that shatter into a million pieces just by being looked at. Like all good chips, they come in a square package. Chips from Belarus, somehow a bad use of potatoes from a country built on them. I had never met another girl like her. She is truly one of a kind and truly unique and truly a special girl. That's Joe Crawford, boyfriend of Kamila Kovaleva. The day is June 29, 1993. A baby is born in Minsk, Belarus. Like all other babies born then and there, she celebrates with a shot of cold 73% vodka. But unlike other babies, this one isn't ugly. She spends the first 8 years of her life growing up like all Belarusian girls do, painting portraits of President Lukashenko, playing games of spin the potato, manufacturing Matryoshka dolls, pushing a hoop down a dirt road with a stick. One day, her parents decide that it's time for a different life, a life without the KGB, a life without stray animals, a life without Chernobyl. And so, off they go to the mysterious land of Canada, a land of freedom and opportunity where no one will even know that Belarus is a place. Gear up because we're about to go deep on how a girl like this can fall in love on today's episode of Caminal.
When I
It's the summer of 2009. Happy by Pharrell rules the chart. How to Train Your Dragon 2 rules the box office. And a young Kamila Kovaleva travels from promo gig to promo gig, making good money fast, in a brown bag if possible. She's burdened by one of history's greatest evils, owing money for having lived in Windsor. Promo provides a quick and easy way to break free of those shackles. It also provides clothes, drinks, and limited edition Coca Cola bottles from the World Cup. It's a world she's not new to, but it's also one that will soon lead her down a totally new path. Because unlike others on this path, she's not interested in settling. She wants it all, baby, and she's got the talent and the hustle to take it. So, she does what others can't, uses this time to build connections and further strengthen her ability to creatively influence others. One hot summer day, she accepts a 3-day gig at the Toronto Festival of Beer, a magnet for short men who wear matching shirts, collect free sunglasses, and think being served by a girl means she likes them. It's far from ideal. However, she's been selected for the Carlsberg truck. Carlsberg, the beer that weird old men drink on Saturday mornings while watching soccer, or football as they call it? Well, the secret is Carlsberg owns Somersby, and as you must know, summer 2014 was the hashtag Somersby summer. The painfully sweet, overhyped beverage flowed freely that summer, fueling raging nights and even more raging hangovers. And she would be the face of the brand. Plus, she absolutely glows in yellow. All was set for a standard weekend of promo. Little did she know, her life was about to change forever. For better or for worse. It depends on who you ask. This episode of Criminal is also brought to you by the weird food at Winners. Shopping for clothes you know you don't need? Why not swing by the food section? They've got chips made out of every single ingredient other than potato. Coffee from brands that look like they were made up to be in a movie without having to pay an actual brand. Tubs of strange olive oil, in case you're planning on shoplifting and want to lube up to make yourself harder to catch on the way out. food from winners, like buying clothes from Sobeys. A few days before the festival, she arrives at the CNE grounds where the event is being held. There, she meets the other girls. Their names will remain anonymous, both for respect of their privacy and the fact that the narrator never actually learned them. Then, she sees him, dressed in his dark gray favorite t shirt with a tie dye pocket from PacSun. He's tall, a classic brunette, and thanks to being alone in Mississauga for 3 months, in the best shape of his life, Joe Crawford. Yeah, I didn't really think much about it when I first met her for the first time, to be honest, but she definitely stood out, and I had the most memory of her. The team lead. But apart from his good looks, he's not like the other team leads. Whereas they've poured drinks for others, he has less bartending experience than a Mormon priest. Still, he's tall, white, straight, and a man, so his leadership abilities must be natural, and he's definitely earned this management position. Initially, she's unimpressed. What is he if not another dude? That's until something new enters the picture: competition. Being a naturally generous person, she tries to take a new, inexperienced promo girl under her wing. That is, until she betrays her and states her interest in Joe. And just like that, the gauntlet is thrown down. He has no idea what he's in for. He has no idea in general, really. Day one arrives on time. Camilla, of course, does not. Whereas others would come with a good excuse, she senses the flaccidity of her team lead's will and talks about the club she was at the night before. Being afraid of social situations and confrontation, he's impressed and lets it slide. And so the day begins. As the drinks begin to flow, it becomes a blur. Terrified of getting in trouble, he quickly shuts down the drinking games that have begun on the hashtag Summersby Summer tables surrounding the truck. She, meanwhile, has been invited on stage, most likely due to her supreme intellect. There, she dances and plays the tambourine, effectively doing more to promote Summersby than he'll do in his entire summer in the marketing department. As the day progresses, her and the other girl become more and more talkative with him. Being so deeply focused on his work, he doesn't realize that this is genuine interest in him. For these are girls that are paid to be conversational and friendly with guys they have no interest in. So, naturally, that's what they're doing with him. Plus, he's not the creepy type of guy who's going to flirt with his subordinates, even if they're technically making twice as much money as him. And so, day one comes to a close with him exhausted and her actually pretty well rested. He drives back to his penthouse apartment while she catches the TTC to her parents' house. Day two is a whirlwind. It's Saturday, and the bachelor parties are out in full force. Matching shirts with nicknames on the back, borderline skin cancer inducing sunburns, an unquenchable thirst for sweet, carbonated booze, and lanyards. As the team finishes setting up, Camilla arrives, this time not even really trying to come up with an excuse. As the day progresses, she begins to tell him something that shocks him. He needs to break the girls. This is stunning. Breaking them sounds cruel. They aren't horses, and if they were, he'd be way too nice, because horses are cool. So, he continues his day oblivious to his subordinate's desire for what she actually meant: a break. Being such a dedicated, hard worker, he's unfamiliar with the concept of a break. To him, breaks are for factory workers and bones. She eventually tells him what she means. He's surprised, embarrassed, and crestfallen. How could he have not known this was a part of managing employees? Why hadn't they taught this in the white guy school? So, he begins sending them on their breaks, like some sort of communist. Meanwhile, Camilla and the other girl continue their battle for his attention. Little do they know, he's an oblivious fool. Yeah, I really had no idea what was going on. I would say, overall, I was quite clueless. The final day. He's drained. He slept 6 hours total over the past few nights. Some types of beer are running low. Will they have replacements? Will this main project of his co op term be a failure? Should he step inside the frigid keg room in the back of the truck? and freeze himself until the technology to thaw people out is invented so he can get out of this? She, on the other hand, arrives her standard 45 minutes late, bragging of how hungover she is. Like her, the crowd is noticeably sluggish. They've spent 2 days trudging from truck to truck, refilling their cheap plastic mugs with the insipid swill of Bud Light Lime. Like zombies desperate for brains, they search for free merch like peasants. And at the Carlsberg truck, the battle for his heart continues. He has no idea. Yet, as the day comes to a close, she realizes something. Something that confuses her. This competition for her, that began as simply something she wanted to win, it was bizarre. Like the Grinch on Christmas morning, she was feeling something. She had beaten out the other for his attention, but did it matter? He was clueless and scared. As they said their goodbyes, she discovered that she had lost her phone. Being a consummate gentleman, he allowed her to use his precious minutes to type in her number on his phone and call. Surprise! It was in her purse. Silly her. And so, in the warm Sunday rain, they hug and part ways. After much hesitation, she sent him an Instagram message. Little did she know, he didn't know how to use that feature. A few weeks passed, and he still thought of her, which was weird for him. Not his style at all. Even in his thoughts, he tended to run from girls. Yet, there was something different here. He didn't know what. Feelings weren't really his thing. So, he found her number was still in his Blackberry Bold, a pretty cool phone, and he typed a message, and he sat and thought about it, and thought about it. Did she like him? Was she just nice because she was being paid to be? Would he get in trouble for texting someone his company had hired? Then, in an uncharacteristic move, he grew some courage and pressed send, and waited, then waited some more. Though she was in fact nervously thinking of the perfect response. He sat in terror, thinking that he'd be ignored, until he saw the response, laughed, and texted back. And so it began. They got to know each other. She talked about her life. He nervously revealed he loved to debate. To his surprise, she thought it was cool. Had she drunk too much Summersby? Like a true feminist, she asked him on the first date. He drove to pick her up in his hand me down Honda Accord from his grandma. As he got close, he pulled into a parking lot and waited 2 minutes so he'd be precisely on time. From there, they spent a magical evening in High Park, discovering their mutual love of animals and hatred of people. Afterwards, they dined out at one of the finest frickin' pubs in the West GTA. As she had asked him on a date, she was committed to paying. So, as he went to the washroom to freshen up, as the ladies would say, she went ahead and paid. He was taken aback, yet also impressed. Dates like these continued for the next few weeks, with trips to the hottest clubs in town, like Ripley's Aquarium. But as summer came to an end, so did their dates. Despite her obvious signals and the fact that they were going on dates, he was still running away scared. Even when she held herself hostage in his car, she did not relent. Still, like an absolute fool, he left and returned to Brock. It was cruel, unfair, and his greatest regret. As the school year passed, they continued to communicate. She even visited him, as he needed arm candy for his Business Students Association gala. Gala? Gala. Gala. That was the first day their love was rekindled. He opened himself up and found that maybe, just maybe, he was capable of love. Then, as he finished his scholarly activities and moved to conquer the city, he found himself living just a few blocks away from her. Coincidence? Or a sign from God? Either way, it would be tough to avoid her. That spring, what was meant to be began to form. One night in late June, she was being feted for her birthday at one of Toronto's most almost shut down by the health inspector sushi restaurants. Amidst a crowd of her friends, this was his last true test. As she downed buckets of lychee martinis that people kept ordering for her but left without paying for, he deftly worked the room, wooing even the most judgmental of the crew. After dinner ended, they stood on the street as she smoked a record broken amount of cigarettes. There, she discovered and took part in one of his favorite pastimes for the first time, bailing on the club before even going. And so, they stood together in the street, waiting for the Uber, which had just came to the city. They talked and talked, and eventually, she spoke the most romantic words any relationship can begin with. So, I guess we're dating now? And the rest is history. Sorry, her story. Caminal is brought to you and produced by me, Joe Crawford. The assistant producer is Joe Crawford. The producer is Joe Crawford. Illustrations are done and paid for by Joe Crawford. This episode was recorded at Joe Crawford Studios at 100 Harbor Street in Toronto. Thanks for listening.